We're talking today with Thomas Pacic of Grand Rapids, Michigan, and the interviewer is James Smither of the Grand Valley State University Veterans History Project. Okay. Now, can you begin with some background on yourself, and to begin with, where and when were you born?
Born in Youngstown, Ohio, November 23rd, 1927. And fortunately, I had a brother that was born on the same date, but he was much older than me, but he passed on. I went to parochial Catholic school, St. Peter and Paul, for 8 years. Then I went to high school, ran high, graduated.
Okay. Now, what was your family doing for a living when you were a kid?
Well, my mother and father had 9 kids, and there's only 3 of us left. I'm the oldest, and my father came over from Old Country. My mother was born here in Keysport. My father came from Croatia, and he started running a bar, and he had 2 bars at one time. And then when it went dry, he opened a grocery store, and then when it became wet again, then he reopened the bar again. And during that period, when it was like dry, he had to make his own wine and whiskey because we had a lot of relatives, and so he'd get boxcars of grapes and make the wine downstairs. He had the presses, the barrels, everything he needed, crushers and everything. So
now, was that legal at the time? Could you make it for family?
Yes, he didn't sell it.
Okay.
And what he did is back then, you didn't have cars like you have now. You didn't have TV or anything. So the relatives, some of the relatives came over almost every weekend. And father would say, go get us some wine. We'd run down the cellar. One of the boys ran down the cellar, get a jug of wine, bring it up. And they would visit, you know, and eat and drink, whatever they did. And because back then the bar wasn't open on a Sunday. Mm-hmm. Now, then we opened it 7 days a week, but back then it wasn't. But then he closed the grocery store when it went wet, and reopened the bar just one. Because, like I said, there was 9 siblings in our family. And we all lived at the bar upstairs, and the business was downstairs. And then the war broke out, and my oldest brother, he joined the Army in 1940, because the war didn't break out to 41. And then the rest of us moved from the bar. We moved up on Madison Avenue in Youngstown, Ohio. And then when my third oldest brother, Joe, graduated from Rand, he was 2 years ahead of me. He volunteered for the Navy. And the older brother, Carl had the same birthday that I had. He had something like polio, but they didn't have a name for it back then. So gradually he got worse and worse, and he got bed fast and he passed away. And then the younger brother than him, he was off away to college. He had hard of hearing, he couldn't hear. He had 2 hearing aids, so he was 4F. So it fell on me to go to the bar and work. Work at the bar, so I did when I went to high school too at the same time.
Okay. Now, to back up a little bit, do you remember how you heard about Pearl Harbor?
Yes, really, we was at our new house, not new house, but mm-hmm. my dad had it for years and years and years, but we went back into it. And back then, no TVs, but we had radios, and we used to play the record players constantly. But we had the radio on, and came on the radio, and man, you know, as young as I was, 41, I just graduated grade school mm-hmm. in high school, and I know it was bad. War is bad, period, because we learned that in school. And I had a brother who was in the service, and he was already in a little over a year probably before the war broke out, and I didn't know what was going to happen to him. So yeah, it was, and my father and my mother too, they were devastated because they had a son who was in the service. Okay. He was ready, you know, he was gone, you know.
Did your father still have any contact with people back home in what was then Yugoslavia? Or
Croatia. Yeah. Well, yeah, he had relatives there, And in past years, my sister and her nephew, they went back. My nephew went back. I never made it back to Croatia, but yeah, my father's relatives would come over here, and he had relatives here that lived in Youngstown,
Mm-hmm.
that were from the same village. They belonged to the same church, and they were relations. I mean, they're all
I was just wondering.
cousins. They're all
Yeah.
cousins.
Okay.
We
I'm just
call them
wondering
Brumas.
if your father kind of paid particular attention to the news from that part of the world, because in those days Croatia was part of Yugoslavia and
Yes.
that was occupied by the Germans
And Tito was in power. Marshal Tito was in power at the time.
after the war. He's a partisan leader during the
Yeah,
war and then
yeah.
takes over afterward.
Right.
Yeah.
After-
Okay.
it was after the
All right. So now, of course, when Pearl Harbor happens, you're only like 14 years old. So that's you're born
yeah.
in 27. So
Yeah, right,
yeah,
right.
yeah. So did you figure that the war would be over before you had a chance to get into
You
it?
know, I never gave that a thought.
Okay.
But the longer it went on, and and all my relatives were leaving, some of them didn't come back, cousins, and then my brother left, and I knew it was just a matter of time. I was going to go, but luckily, the armistice was signed. But then I had to go anyway because they had the fellas that were getting discharged. They had to replenish them with young guys, and so I volunteered to go.
Okay.
I had no choice.
Now, do you think you would have been drafted if you hadn't gone
Oh,
to enlist?
definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you knew that was coming.
Some of my school chums were 4F, but not me. I know. I knew I was going.
Okay. Now, which branch did you join and why did you choose it?
I joined the U.S. Coast Guard, and primarily, why I chose it was two reasons. I didn't want to sleep in the foxhole. That's number one. I liked the water, but Navy was 4 years, and the Coast Guard was 2. And I says, let me try that. And if I like it, I can re-enlist. But I says, I'll try that 2 years first. And that's why I joined the Coast Guard. It was close by. It's right there in Cleveland, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
They had a Coast Guard base right there in Cleveland.
Okay. So then, on what date? So when do you actually go in?
Well, I joined the Coast Guard in December of '45, but they didn't start boot camp until January, and so they said stay home, and they gave me the papers never to report to Curtis Bay, Maryland. It was January 8th, 1946, and
Okay.
that's where I had to report.
All right.
Curtis Bay, Maryland.
And then how did they get you up to Maryland?
Oh, you'll train, you'll train, and we still had in Youngstown we had 4 train stations, I think, 3 or 4,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it was the Erie that took me to Baltimore, Maryland. It's either that or the Pennsy, I don't remember.
Okay. And then where exactly is Curtis Bay relative to?
Baltimore.
Okay, it's Baltimore.
That's like it's close to Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what the boot camp was at the time for the Coast
All
Guard.
right. Now, describe what they do in boot camp.
Well, they told us right off the bat the boot camps were normally 3 or 4 months old or longer, but we're getting the fast treatment. Our boot camp is going to be 1 month, and we're shipping out because they need the personnel. So we went through boot camp. We did everything that they asked us to do. We didn't like it. Whether we liked it or not, we had to do it. But I mean, boot camp was boot camp. I mean, you marched, you drilled, you had duties, you had watches, 4 hours on, 4 hours off. You washed your own clothes. You didn't have to cook your own food because they fed you. And it was winter, it was cold. I mean, you washed your clothes, put it out. I mean, they just didn't dry out in the winter, They were hard for a long time. But it went fast,
Now, in the Coast Guard, how much emphasis did they place on discipline and spit and polish stuff?
Oh, yeah, the services. No discipline. You didn't. There's no fooling around. Oh no. I mean, the lights are out at a certain time. You get up at a certain time. You go get cleaned up at a certain time. You go to eat at a certain time. You leave at a certain time. You get out there and muster, and then you drill, you march, you do what you have to do, train, whatever they want you to do. You have to do all that. Oh no. It's a discipline.
Okay.
Service is service.
Now, how easy or hard was it for you to adjust to that life?
It wasn't bad. because I was thinking of my brother Waller. He was in the Army, and then he went to then he had an Air Force. He joined the Air Force. Then he transferred into the Air Force. And the younger brother was in the Navy. Older brother was in the Navy, and he's over in Japan, and the other one's over in Europe. You know, so I says, you know, it's time for me to do mine. You know,
Okay.
do my stuff.
So you figured out how it worked, and you just did it their way.
I went in because I knew it wasn't gonna do me a bit of good to not fight, but I mean not like it or not. I got accept it and go on with my life.
Now, do you remember if there were anybody in your training class there who did push back or messed up, and what happens to them?
Well, there was a couple of guys. They were a little slow, and they were pushed back. Yes, they just they couldn't keep up with the bookwork or whatever we learned, and they would put them in another class to start over again,
Right.
and give them another chance.
Okay, but you didn't really have people who were discipline problems.
Oh yes.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
What happens to them?
When they're discipline. Oh yeah. When they're discipline problems, then you get extra duty. Oh yeah. You get KP. You pots and pans in the kitchen, or you do extra duty marching. Like we got 4 on and 4 off when we have the duty. They'll do extra duty.
Okay. Now, did any of your training involve swimming or working on boats or things like that?
No, they didn't learn. We didn't learn anything about working on boats in basic.
Okay.
Well, we did learn how to shoot a rifle. We had out in the range. We had to shoot a gun.
Did you have to pass a swimming test?
Yes, yeah, we did. We had to pass the swimming test, but it was easy for me because when I was in high school and the summer months, I'd spend a lot of time at the pool as like an auxiliary lifeguard.
Mm-hmm.
And when they blow the whistle, everybody would go out. The auxiliaries, they would dive in and swim all around the pool. They would keep you out for about 10 or 15 minutes. So I could hold my breath real long. So I was an excellent swimmer.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then the classroom work, what would they be teaching you?
Oh, they taught us a lot about the Coast Guard, the history of the Coast Guard, and what they do in different phases of the Coast Guard, and we also learned how to tie all these knots. I mean, whether we're going to use them or not, we had to learn how to tie these knots. You almost tied them blindfolded because you really have to learn how to tie those knots.
All right.
Because when you're aboard ship, I mean, you don't tie too many of those small knots, but you work with the big hawsers and the big rope all the time. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
You're working with big rope, heavy rope.
And then the people who were training you at that point, were these all World War II veterans, or?
Yeah. Most of the training were career guys.
Mm-hmm.
Not, but they were career World War II too, but they were career men that did all the training.
Did they tell
But
you?
no females at the time,
Right.
just males.
Right. And did they tell you anything about their own experiences in the war? Because Coast Guard did anti-submarine patrol and convoy escort.
No, they didn't really tell us about that I can remember.
Mm-hmm.
They were so intent on teaching us what they had to teach us and get us out of there,
Yeah.
because they got another class coming in right behind us.
That's right, because you're just there for a month, so there's
And
not a lot of
they got
spare
another
time.
class coming up, and they want to get us out of there.
Okay.
I told you my ship was waiting.
All right. So what happens to you? You finish your 4 weeks in Maryland. Now what
Well,
happens?
they laid. I think we stayed around maybe another week just to see town and let us get a feel of everything, and then they transferred me aboard a ship, and it was a cargo ship, just like I worked on in the Navy. I guess that's why I went to the cargo in the Navy, because I did cargo in the Coast Guard.
Okay.
And yes, then we learned all about the ship, the duties, watches, going up in a crow's nest and stay 4 hours up there when you're underway. And when we left like that area, we didn't go too far, because what we had to do is, we had to demine that ship, and that was a lot of work. I mean, we had real thick, heavy cables, and they actually ran them around the ship all around the ship. And I don't know, they put electric through it, what they had to do, because when we got out, we had to repel mines that were left over from World War II.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and when we hit San Diego, we did spot a mine, and we watched it close to the ship, but it didn't come, it wouldn't hit it. I mean, because we were repelling it.
Right.
We were repelling the mine.
Okay. So did you have people who'd have to dive under
Well,
the hull
yeah,
of the ship?
yeah, we didn't. We were on
Yeah.
top. Yeah, but they had guys that had to get it around. Right. That was. It was cold. It was winter.
All right. Now, were you going out of Baltimore, Chesapeake Bay at
Yeah.
that point? Okay. And then, was this just sort of a shakedown thing, or were you
Yeah.
actually?
No, this the putting the cables around the ship. We were demining that ship.
Right.
Oh yeah.
But then from there, did you go on? But then you got it. But you stayed on that ship, and then you went.
We stayed on that ship.
Okay.
That was we were transferred to the ship. That was our post of duty.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't leave that ship.
So what was that first cruise like for you? I mean, how?
Well, that was an experience. I got sick. You know, and the captain said, because I was on the bridge, you know, doing watch and that, the wheel and that, and he says, "Don't worry about it." He says, "I get sick myself." He says, when we first go out, and he says, I don't know if he's trying to please me. That please me or whatever he's telling me. He says, first couple days out, and then I found out in the Navy that, you know, you get used to it. But it takes a day or two to get accustomed back to that rolling and all that. Yeah. Oh yeah. I got sick. All of them got sick.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
And then what was the weather like as you're going south and through the Caribbean?
Well, when we left, when you go past Cape Hatteras in Virginia, it's always rough. No ifs, ands, or buts. Cape Hatteras has always been. They told us it's going to be rough. And it was rough, you know. And that ship is bobbing up and down and everything else. We sailed down through, and then we got into the Panama Canal, and then we went through the Panama Canal. That was really an experience because we went through all the locks, you know, and one part is higher than the other. So you know, in one section of the canal, they pump water in to raise you up, and the other section they drop water to let you out. You know, so that really was an experience that it was just going through that canal.
Okay. Now, when you do that, do you stop and get to go on shore, or do you just stay on the ship the whole time?
No, we had no shore.
Okay.
No, sir.
All right.
No.
And then you get out in the Pacific, and then where are you going?
Well, then we went up, like I said, we went up to California, right around San Diego, and that's where we saw that one mine. And then we stopped at Frisco, San Francisco, and I'd say we were there about a week.
Okay. Now there, did you get shore leave?
Oh yes, oh yeah, we got shore leave. Yeah, I got shore leave, and that was really an experience, Frisco, because I was never anywhere before. I mean, I never left Youngstown, no, except when I went to Cleveland to join. We go to baseball game when I was young, and then joined the Coast Guard. So that was an experience, Frisco. But you always go with buddies, you know. But it's really something to see that, see Frisco.
All right. And then from San Francisco, then
we went to Seattle, Washington, and we were getting ready to go to the Aleutians, and we were going to unload the ship with all our supplies at all the Coast Guard stations up there that needed supplies, and you can only get in and out at certain times of the year. But when we hit Seattle, I don't know, I was there a day or so, I forgot. But anyway, I got transfer orders. They transferred me from Seattle to Miami, and we went. I trained this couple of us that went from Seattle to Chicago and from Chicago to Miami, and we stayed at the Coast Guard base in Miami, and we worked with the seaplanes that were always going out and patrol, and then we'd have to go underwater. When they came back, hook them up so they could be pulled up by a winch, and by the same token, when they were going out, you get in the water and you get unhook them and push them out.
Okay.
And
now, how long did you stay there?
we were waiting for transportation to San Juan, Puerto Rico, and I would say probably a week at the most, and then we flew to San Juan. they wait for, I mean, we didn't take commercial planes, we took service planes, wherever we could, we sat, you know. That's the kind of transportation we were getting going down there. And that was an experience too, because that was really nice and warm compared to Seattle. Even Frisco was cold, it was in winter. And that was really different. And my first job down there was delivering messages between some offices and sick bay, the hospital, and I had a bike, and I had to take the mail all around there. And among other things, my training and everything else we had there. But unfortunately, what I think, I think maybe it was there a month or something, and I got, my sister had terminal cancer, and I had to transfer to Cleveland, and I hated to go, but then, you know, then I'd leave, and I went to visit my family in Youngstown, and I went back to Cleveland after 5 days or whatever. And I says, I'm ready to go back to San Juan, and they says, you ain't going back to San Juan.
Okay. Now, who decided you weren't going to go back to San
The
Juan?
Coast Guard.
Okay.
They told me, they says, you can go within 100 miles of here, of really like Youngstown. He says, because I knew my sister had cancer, but I didn't know, it's true, I know she was going to pass away. Okay. And that was, gosh, when did I go back there? June, something like May, June, and she passed away in early September. So I said, well, you know, Cleveland, I don't know too much about Cleveland. I says, they told me where I could go. And they said, where they needed people. So I says, I'll take Erie, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
I don't know anything about Erie, Pennsylvania at all. But I took it. And that was a lifeboat and a lighthouse station. And there was only a handful. There was a couple of chiefs there and a first class, and me and another guy. That's all. We had nobody. I mean, they were. That's why when I got there, man, I mean, we went to work. I mean, you know, we were out all hours of the day looking for boats, looking for people. You know, people calling their SOS, or we'd get telephone calls. They were out fishing. They didn't come back. You know, and go find them. So we you know, like you'd have maybe 3 or 4 guys on the boat. By two would go because they had nobody else there.
Okay. Now these were motorboats, right?
Well, they were speedboats. Yeah. Speedboats. One was a crash boat, and one was trying to remember now. The lifeboat that would roll over, who couldn't sink it. That was, I think that was 32 foot, and the crash boat was 18 foot, and then we had another boat there that was about the same size, 18 foot, and we had 3 boats.
Okay.
And, you know, that's and naturally the chief was he was a machinist mate, and he had to work on the boat sometimes quite a bit because, you know, they were in service all the time. You know? So what we had coming out and helping us on weekends was Coast Guard Auxiliary. Now these guys lived primarily in Erie, Pennsylvania. And they were primarily in the service before, or they were in the Navy or Coast Guard or something. And they did this on the side, but they were Coast Guard Auxiliary, and they had uniforms and everything. And they would come out and help us, but we didn't have enough people.
Okay.
We didn't have enough personnel at all.
Because Erie, Pennsylvania, so you're on the shore of Lake Erie, there's a big harbor there,
Yep.
You have swimmers, you have pleasure boaters, fishermen, that kind of stuff.
Right.
Okay, and you got there and it was the summer that you arrived?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a lot going on.
Yes, and we had a big bay that was there, and then you had this channel where lighthouse was there, and the lifeboat station was here, and the channel took them out to Lake Erie.
Okay, and so what kinds of things happened while you were there that sort of stand out in your memory? I mean, you rescued people?
Well, yes, that we, especially when a squall would kick up, why automatically we just jump in a boat or 2. Sometimes we had to take 2 boats out there, even if there's only 1 on the boat, because these sailboats are out there and the squall comes up, they flip, and there's people hanging in the water. So you got to get your butt out there and rescue these people, and that was constantly. I mean, that's just like putting on your shoes in the morning. Anytime that you got a storm, and you naturally take care of the people that's in the bay first, because those are the smaller boats. Okay, the bigger boats are out in the lake. Okay, the bigger boats, so they can withstand a storm a lot better than the small boats. So you try to get them taken care of, then you go out in the lake and try to then help the people out there.
Okay, so I think weather forecasting in those days wasn't good enough that you wouldn't know if there was a squall coming or could stir up, or
they did the best they can. Like I say, there's no TV or nothing.
Yeah.
We had telephone, but we had our radio systems. They were on all the time. We could never do 100% of the day they're on, because if another Coast Guard base from Connecticut or Cleveland calls or something, we got to talk to them, man. Our radio's on all the time,
Right.
shortwave radio, and the people that have boats, the bigger boats, they all have radios, and they would call us, tell us, they can see them sometime. The squall's coming out there. They would call and say, hey, we see it coming. It's so far out. Better get ready.
all right. Now you actually got a citation at one point for rescuing people. Can you tell us about that event?
I was with an auxiliary Coast Guardsman. It's just the two of us, and we run one of the boats, and we were looking for a couple of kids, if I remember, that were missing. And so we were back in the lagoons, and I was down. I was talking on the radio down, and the guy that's with me, I forget his name, he's hollering like hell, get up here and take the boat, I gotta get it, somebody's drowning out there. So I run up, and I look out there, and I see two people in the water, okay, and they're not hanging on any canoe or nothing like that thing, they're on the water, okay. And they're going down. So I grabbed a life ring off the boat, and I went in. Shoes, jacket, I went in the water, swimmer. And I'm coming over there, because we're pretty close. And this gal sees me, and she lets go of her husband, because he's had so much water. She grabs me, and down I go. Down she goes. And I said, this isn't gonna work. So when we come up, I pushed away from her, and I had to I found the ring, and I put the ring over her so she could hold on to that, okay? Then I turned around to try to find her husband. I found out later it was husband and wife, and she was pregnant. They fell out of a canoe. They were fooling around with another couple. I think her mother and father, God bless them, she was pregnant, and she lost her balance, and she fell out. And then the guy was with told me, he says, I'm coming up there, and he says, they're in the water. He said, but somebody told him, he says, he was in a canoe. It wasn't tipped over at the time. She fell in. He's diving in after her, okay? And he takes out his wallet, tries to throw it in the canoe, but the canoe tips over, And, oh gosh, but he thought of his wallet. Did he want to lose it? Or, I don't know, but he threw his wallet, and then he goes after his wife. But then after I got the ring around her, okay, and she was hysterical. She was, oh God bless her. So when she didn't lose the child, then I had to grab him, and then I pulled him to the canoe, and we just held on to the canoe until our boat came across. Okay. And then we turned the canoe over, and we were going to put him in a canoe, because where they rented a canoe and that, it's way down there someplace. She would not get in that. She would not get in that canoe. So I told my buddy, I said, well, get me up. So he had to pull me up. Okay, then two of us grabbed her, and got her aboard the boat, because she wasn't getting back in that canoe. And then we got him out, and then we tied the canoe on the back of our boat. And then her mother and father they were okay, but they were, I don't know how, they went close to them or something to help rescue them. But anyway, then we all went back, went all the way back to where they rented the canoes, and then we took the canoe off, gave it back to the guy, and then helped her and him off the boat, and just let them. They were okay, fine, I guess, I don't know. But they had ambulance, somebody had to call an ambulance there, so God bless them. She didn't lose the job.
Okay. Now, was that sort of the most dramatic event rescue you had, or were there a lot of others?
No, not that was that. No. When I was in high school, you know, like I told you, we'd dive. You know, yeah, I would pull some of it out of the water, maybe, but not like. Oh no. She grabbed me, down we went, and I says, I'm taking water. She's taking water, you know, 'cause she let her husband go when she saw me. God, I don't know.
Okay.
God bless her.
But was that the most dramatic rescue you had?
Yes, in the Coast Guard. Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Now, how long did you stay at Erie?
I stayed until I got discharged.
Okay.
Until I got discharged.
And so, about how many months was that?
What happened? The Coast Guard came up with a policy that they didn't want any more 2-year enlistments. They wanted 4-year enlistments. They wanted me to sign for 2 more years to make a 4-year enlistment. And my dad at that time he got terminal cancer, and he says I got to go help the family. So I got discharged, and I went back to Youngstown, and when I forget now when I got May, but my dad died in December, yeah. And then the following summer I joined the Navy Reserve.
Okay, but you spent you spent a winter at Erie, right? You stayed through the winter.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, those were rough.
Yeah.
Those are rough winters.
Okay. Now so you start in the summer, and then there's a lot of boating and stuff going on, and swimming and that kind of thing.
Right.
Now, does business quiet down for the Coast Guard as you get into the fall?
In the fall it quiets down, yes, but in the winter it's closed. And we lived 18 miles out on the peninsula compared to going to town. So we had to go. The kids had to go to school, so we had 2 girls, young daughters. They went to school. They lived there with the chief, the family, and we took care of the lights. Like I say, we had to repair all the boats. That takes time, and we had to keep checking the lights. And then I had a Caterpillar D3 that we used to plow the snow. One of them old buggers. It was fun to run, but it was it was tough. It wasn't like a snow plow that you would get. You know, it was a bulldozer that we used the plow to try to help get us out of there, and then the city would come in and plow a lot of our road to get us into town.
Okay, and I know that these days Erie is kind of in that snow belt off of Lake Erie. If you get northwest winds, you get a lot of lake effect right there. And was that going on while that winter you were there?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
And then
that's why I said hey, I'd run the bulldozer.
Okay. And then did the harbor freeze?
The harbor froze, and the channel freezes to the eye and to the touch. Okay, but like I said, I'm sorry, I told you before. We have to go over and check the batteries on the lighthouse on the other side of that channel. And it's an 18-mile drive all the way around, or, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you can be over at the lighthouse, you can check the batteries and come on back. And that day, he said, well, let's walk across and check. Look, it looks like it's solid.
Okay, so now, because you told me this story off camera, but now on camera we're doing it for an audience that hasn't heard it yet, so okay. So you said, he says do this. Whose idea was it to walk across that day?
Well, I guess the chief and everything, I mean, they went out there and looked at it, and they said, it looks pretty solid, it's been frozen a long time and all that, okay, so, hey, they got to be more experience than I got.
Okay.
Oh my,
So about how far...
I'm an 18-year-old kid.
About how far from land or whatever, how long a stretch of ice did you have to cross?
From our dock where we pulled our boats in, that was a pretty wide channel because the big boats go in and out to get into the bay, and we got some big size ships that would come in from Lake Erie.
Okay, but would it be, you know, how long a trip would that be? you
Oh,
think?
I'd offhand say, I'd say maybe it's about 80 yards,
Okay,
maybe even 100.
all right,
It was a pretty wide channel.
yeah, but it's
And
not,
it's flowing under there all the time.
hmm
That
So-
doesn't freeze.
yeah, you got water flowing underneath the whole time, it's not
Yes.
frozen, okay. But at certain times of year, it's safe to walk across the channel and go and do that, at least it's supposed to be. Okay,
It's supposed to be,
so now, what's the,
because they've done it before.
okay, so what's the procedure then? If
Well-
you're gonna send someone over to check the light, what do you do?
Yeah, I gotta go check the lighthouse and check the batteries and all that. We don't want them to freeze, and you know, gotta make sure they're charged up. And so what you do is you put a you tie a rope around your waist, and you take a big oar boat, a real long oar boat, okay?
Mm.
And you have a buddy that stays on close to the shore there, and he's holding the other end of the rope. In case something happens, he's got the rope, okay? So naturally I start across the channel. I got my oar boat, my big long oar boat, and I got the rope tied around me, and he's got the other end of the rope. He doesn't tie the rope around him. He's got the other end of the rope so he can pull, okay? He didn't want to,
But he hasn't tied the rope to
or he
anything.
can grab the rope and run with it, you know? No,
Yeah.
he had the other end of the rope.
And,
I started
what was the
across.
purpose of having the oar? Why were you carrying an
Well,
oar? with
because if you go through the ice, that oar would displace your weight. Okay? Because I remember that when I came back. And that'll displace your weight. And that oar's a lot longer than this. That's a big long oar. Because
And-
you're pretty safe if you hold on to that oar and you go through. It's not, especially the part you walked over. That's gonna hold it. And this part, it displaces it. You're pretty good. You're not gonna go anywhere with it.
Okay.
But I started across, and you know, you're looking as you walk, you know, real gingerly, and I thought, this is good and solid, you know. So I started crying. I get more confidence as I go, and then all of a sudden, boom, I'm in the water, and lo and behold, I'm supposed to hold on to this oar. I threw it, I got scared, down I went. I didn't even think about the rope around me. I knew I had a rope around me, what do you care about that? There's a guy back there holding on to it. And I had these big hip boots on, rubber boots, and they filled with water, and I kicked them off. They didn't take long to fill up on the way up. And lucky I came close to my hold that I went through, thank God. And I grabbed it, pulled myself up, turned around, holler at my buddy to pull me in. He's gone. He's gone. There's nobody there. I mean, I'm by myself. So, oh man, you know, what went through my mind. Anyway, I got out slow, you know, put my hands out, both hands out, and I started inching myself back up because I had a little buoyancy with the water. And I kicked off those heavy boots. They're gone. All I got is socks on. And, you know, and I pulled myself out slowly and surely on that ice. And then I just inched my way. I wouldn't stand up. I inched because I was afraid to go back through again. So I inched my way back till I got pretty close to where I thought I was going to be safe. I don't remember. But anyway, then I got up, went up, took off my rope, and I went up to the lifeboat station. We had a big station, and it's a little walk up there, freezing all the way. But got in there. They looked at me and they said, "What happened to you?" I said, "I fell through the ice." They says, "What? What do you mean you fell through the ice?" I said, "I fell through the ice." And they were surprised, you know, that the kid, he left. He was in shell shock. He left me.
Well, was the kid sitting there and
He was sitting right there. He couldn't talk. He was just like, he couldn't talk. He made it back up there, but he didn't tell anybody. He didn't tell. He was afraid. He couldn't talk. And I guess the chief was just scratching his head. He said, "Oh," he says, He said, we didn't think you were going to fall through, but anyway, go take a shower. You still got to check those lights. So I had to go and take a shower, change the clothes, take a shower, and take the Jeep. And that's a long way to get around it because, we had a winch on the Jeep, and a lot of times we get stuck in the snow. And we had a rope. We would tie it on the closest tree and turn the winch on and winch the Jeep out. If it's a four-wheel drive, that didn't mean, it's still, they get stuck in the snow. And then we had to drive all the way around and go to the lighthouse and open it up and check the batteries to make sure they're not frozen because you got to be charged all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then we drove back. We used to have to go there to get groceries all the time anyway,
Mm-hmm.
But we just, in the mail. But this time, we just said who said we're going to walk across? They've done it before, we're going to do it. But unfortunately, that little patch of ice was too thin.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't weigh that much. I went to the service, I was like 135 pounds. I was lightweight, just out of high school, skinny thing. But I went through.
Okay. So after that, did anybody else try walking across?
Not that winter. No, we always drove all the way around.
All right. And you're living in a place like that. I mean, how much contact do you have with the civilian population there?
None. To have civilian contact, you had to go in town.
Okay. Because
Even in the summer, there's no civilians there.
Yeah.
It's a Coast Guard base.
Right.
It's restricted.
Yeah, it's a base, and a lot of that is park or whatever. There's not a whole lot of people who live out on that peninsula.
Well, we just got the one section of the base.
Right.
Okay. Now the rest of the peninsula belongs to the public. They go
Mhm.
swimming out there
Yep.
every day. In the summer.
Mhm.
We got a lot of deer out. We got a lot of animals out there. Rabbits and skunks but they have park police that patrol that
Right.
in the summer, but because they keep all the people in line, no fires or no booze or whatever.
So
They
when you
patrolled. They patrolled.
okay, so when you're in a little base like this, I mean, what do you do when you're off duty?
Well, they kept us busy. Like I said, we had to repair the boats, and at one time I took the boat around and I hit some rocks, and then I didn't even tell them about it. I said, well, it's not happened. There's no water in it. I don't know, about an hour later, he said, hey, the front of that boat's sinking. He said, what? He said, what did you hit? I said, it's a little bit of rock or something. And they had to pull it right in and start repairing it. But those were all wooden boats back then. I don't know, they're all wooden hulls and everything else. So you got to take a long time to fix them. So you do a lot of repairing. You work on the buoys out there too. That you pull them up in the winter and you take them out in the summer, in the spring, in the summer. And one thing we had to do is we had to cook our own food. I mean, we had no cook or nothing. And we were on a subsistence, so we had $1.20 a day. Each guy got $1.20, and that's what we lived on. And we'd go in and buy what we wanted, and we would cook it. So it would take time to cook and to clean dishes and all that. That took some time. In winter, summer, we had to do it because we had lucky. We had a first class from Atlanta, Georgia. And he was a Southern boy. He could cook. He cooked, fried chicken, and he'd get the frog legs and fix those, and he had done rabbit traps, and boy, he fixed. Oh, he could cook. He helped us cook when he was around. Yeah, Stoney. Yeah, I'll never forget his name.
Okay.
He was a good guy.
How often would you go into town?
We had to go in town and get the mail, but that was just on business, and we would go in town and get the same time we'd pick up some groceries.
Yeah.
But we went out for a day over. No, we never went overnight. Just to go out for the evening, on weekends. Because we, especially in the summer. I mean, even on the weekend, we're working. We couldn't take off. If it was nice and calm, yeah, we could. Well, we try to go to church too every Sunday.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
All right. Now, are there other particular memories of the time in Erie that stand out for you that you haven't brought into the story yet?
Well, I mean, yeah, one time I was in Youngstown and I was called back because there was a homeless man missing from, not a homeless man, it was a man missing from a home,
Mm-hmm.
an elderly fella, and they thought he drowned. So we had to get out there with our skiffs and that, and we had hooks, wood rods we'd throw over, and we would, one guy would be rowing and the other guy would be trying to snag the body,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And we'd snag junk, we'd snag on the body. But unfortunately, in a way, we for 2 days, we didn't find him. So we assumed that he wasn't in that, he was someplace, he was not in that pond, in a little waterway where he was, which was great. We figured he was alive, yeah. But we had so many boats that were in trouble, it was amazing. I mean, people were all so grateful, that you helped them.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you ever have to help any commercial ships of different kinds?
Not in distress,
Mm-hmm.
because they were too big.
Yeah.
They were too big. But if they would get into trouble, yeah, we'd have to go help them. Say they broke down,
Mm-hmm.
like they got big fishing, we'd have to go out there and tow them back. We'd tow them back.
Mm-hmm.
But that didn't happen too often, but that happened, yeah. And if we could do that, that's a feather in our cap.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the people like the Coast Guard in Erie. I mean, they help the people. Let me tell you, they really help the people.
Okay. So when the Coast Guard guys go into town, go to the grocery store, go to the post office, that kind of thing, they're all happy to see you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, especially when, quite a bit of the time though, we wouldn't drive all around for like the groceries and the mail. We would take the boat across at the docks, where all the docks were in Erie.
Right.
And the guy from the grocery store would have everything ready for us, and the mailman would have our mail and everything. So, well, we had to go around in the wintertime. Our boats,
Yeah.
it was frozen. But unless we wanted something special, we had to buy a lot. Then we would take the truck around or the Jeep and get what we had to get. Yeah.
Okay. So you might have stayed in, but you had family issues, and so you left. Okay.
Yep.
And so like end of what, 46 or 47 was it?
I got out in 47. Yeah.
47. Yeah.
May of 47.
Okay. May of 47. And then once you got back home, what did you do?
Well, I went back to the bar. Then my dad passed away. Then my brother came home, and one of them, and he helped at the bar. And I went to school in Chicago with one of my best buddies from Youngstown, and another fellow, I forget his name. And while we were going to school in Chicago, my best friend didn't want to go to the Army. So he says, let's join the Navy Reserve. I says, let's go. So we went down to the Navy Pier in Chicago. He twisted my arm or nothing. I said, let's go. So we joined the Navy Reserve. So we went to all the meetings all the time while we were going to school there. And then we came back, finished school, we came back to Youngstown, and he, not too long after that, maybe 4 or 5 months, he joined the Air Force for 4 years. I says, well, I'm not leaving. I'm staying in the reserve.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was in Youngstown, I kept going to all the meetings all the time, and
Now what kind of school were you going to in Chicago?
I was going to a trade school,
Okay.
and my friend talked me into it. He says you got to get out of that bar, but he says we got to find a trade, And so we like fool on with cars, so we saw we'll do that. We tried body and fender and automotive and that, and when we got out, we worked on that a little bit, and he says, are we getting too nicked up? I says no. I says I'm in the reserve now. I says, so I'm going to all my meetings, and every year I go to take a 2-week training trip.
Mm-hmm.
So I picked where I wanted to go and what ship and everything I was on. So I picked the USS Missouri, BB-63,
Mm-hmm.
famous battleship. So I took took a trip on that. I think I picked it up in Norfolk, and picked that up, and we went on our cruise. You train the whole time you're on. They really they fill you up for the period.
Were they training you just as a general seaman, or did you get any more? Okay.
Yeah, and well, because when I was a first class seaman when I got out of the Coast Guard, so yeah, we did everything that all the other seamen did, and chip and paint and everything else, and we did all the drills, man your battle station. Yeah, we had to do all that, so yeah, and then we went down to the Caribbean. We always went to the Caribbean, which is nice and warm. And the following year, I picked up a minesweeper in Charleston, South Carolina, because my brother was on a minesweeper, and that minesweeper blew up. He lost that ship in Japan, in the Sea of Japan. The minesweeper, so I said, I want to see what the minesweeper's like. So I went down to Charleston, picked up the minesweeper, and we went down to the Caribbean, and I'd never go back on a minesweeper. First off, it was a destroyer minesweeper. It was bigger than my brother was on. He was a yard minesweeper, but it was too small for me. I says, next cruise I take is going to be a cruiser, another battleship, or aircraft carrier, something big. I want something big. But the Korean War broke out, and I signed up with my two buddies from Youngstown. All three of us signed up to go back full time reserve. We became active.
Okay. All right. So when did you report for active duty then?
November. I think it was November the 8th, 1950.
Yeah, okay, so first year of the war.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we joined right away.
Okay. And then what kind of assignment did you get?
Well, we went to Philly for indoctrination, and they looked at my background, and he says, you were stevedore. So they threw him in the stevedore gang. And my buddy was with me, but he was on an aircraft carrier. And somehow he got in the stevedore gang too. and the other fellow was with us. He wasn't so lucky. He was shipped out. He went someplace. I forgot where he went. We lost track of him. But so they would send us to Norfolk, and they started this cargo handling battalion. And they started this in Norfolk. They transferred some of the guys down from Newport News, and a lot of those were regular. And so they says, you got a CB unit, now you're a CHB unit. You got a construction and your cargo. And you guys are going to hump cargo. And well, we hump cargo. Not like now, they got containers and everything. We pallets and we did everything. But that's how I got hurt. But anyway, we were stevedores and we trained. We did every facet of stevedores. I mean, everybody had to learn everything. I mean, you had to learn how to drive a forklift. And then you had to learn how to run the winches, everything that anybody could do, you had to do it so you could move in case they needed you. All the training, everybody got the same training all the time.
Okay.
I mean, even the shooting, shooting rifles, we had to do all that. So.
All right. Now, when you got there and you sort of joined the crew there, I mean, how were you received or how were you treated? You'd have old guys there who.
Well, yeah, I say that this outfit moved from Rhode Island. Yeah, Newport News, Rhode Island.
Well, Newport is Rhode Island.
They were seasoned vets.
Yeah.
Well,
and how did they treat the new guys?
Well, we were new guys in a way, but we were reserves, so they knew some of the reserves they were really seasoned. I mean, they had experience.
Yeah.
They were not kids. We didn't have any more boot camp again, so we didn't. They knew we didn't come out of boot camp. Or they know if they come out of boot camp. First off, they're too young. Number one, number two. I mean, they don't know anything. The guys just come out of boot camp, and so they put us. No, they made hatch crews. I forgot, like we had about 10 hatch crews, probably a dozen each hatch crew, and 10 or 12 hatch crews. And we had Company A and Company B. I was in Company A, and my buddy was in Company B. And unfortunately, we never went on a ship together because when I was gone, he'd be going on another ship. So, but when we came back, we were always together.
Okay.
We were always together.
So men from the stevedore unit, they would be assigned to ships, the cargo ships, and then sail off places and come back.
The ships were loaded in Norfolk, and I don't care whether it was loaded with ammunition or loaded with food supplies. And then they would put the hatch crews on and go on the ship.
Mm-hmm.
And while we were on the ship, we did duties. I mean, we had duties we had to do, seaman duties. We didn't just lounge. We worked, and a lot of times we didn't get along with the crew. I mean, that's unfortunate.
Okay. Now were these?
We were infringing on their territory, like, you know.
Okay. Now were the crews were these Navy crews?
Oh,
or-
no, 100% Navy.
Okay.
Everything was Navy.
Okay. You're not on merchant marine
No,
ships.
no,
You're on
Navy.
you're on government-owned
100%
ships.
Navy.
Okay.
And we took the ships over. We would go to the Mediterranean, and we'd go to. Well, we'd go to Italy, Naples. We'd go to Italy, Naples, or France, Casablanca, Africa, all through the Mediterranean, or we'd go to the Caribbean and replenish the ships, because these guys, they needed food too.
Mm-hmm.
Or we'd go down to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. I was there for a while, and we would load all the ships. We would stay there. We were there like 3, 4, 5 months, whatever. And we would load and unload ships. That's all we did. A ship would come in, and we went on it, and we had a crew works around the clock to get that ship out of there. I mean, these are civilian ships, okay,
Mm-hmm.
that we had to load and unload. We took the Navy ships over, but the ships that we unloaded all the time were civilian ships.
Now were these civilian ships bringing supplies into the Navy base?
Yes.
Okay.
Or for the Navy. This is strictly for Navy. Oh yeah, for the Navy.
All right. And was it different to work with the crews on the civilian ships, or did you not really see much of them because you weren't sailing with them?
No, because we did our own thing.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't work with us. They didn't work side by side. No, we were stevedores, and they were stevedores in a sense. But when they came in, we unloaded the ship 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Or if we were loading it, we loaded 100%.
Right.
They didn't touch it.
Now I know
They
that.
got a union, they wouldn't touch it.
Right. Now during World War II, one of the few jobs that black sailors got in the Navy was being stevedores.
Well,
did you have any, or were they segregated from you?
Let's go back to the Coast Guard. I could say in the Coast Guard that most of the Negroes they worked in the mess. They were, or they took care of the officers.
Right. Yeah, they were servants basically, or cooks. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, they were. But when I was in the Navy, when I was in the stevedore group, no, we had a couple of Negroes that worked right with us. Did the same thing we did.
Of course, by then, officially, the armed services were integrated.
Well,
least officially.
Truman outlawed it, and then he slapped another year on my enlistment. When it was time for me to get out, because they needed, so what could I do? I had to stay. Okay. But no, they worked with us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Now, of the different places that you visited, which ones did you like the best or like the least?
Well, I would say one of the places that I liked the least was Casablanca.
Mm-hmm.
Because they sent us over there because they had a labor strife. They had trouble with the stevedores.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted an increase in pay. So they sent us over. They sent us over there to do the work that they were doing, okay? I think they were making 9 cents an hour.
Mm-hmm.
How could they afford to send us over there? We lived there, But I think that was the worst one. And unfortunately, you have accidents, and see, we work way down in the holes, and we got to climb 2, 3 stories to get up out of that, because we're down in the bottom. And you climb up these ladders that are attached to the wall. And one time, this native over there, he slipped or something. He went back all the way down. And he was, and the guys that were down there, the other natives, man, they stripped his body so fast, it was pathetic. I mean, they took everything, shoes, anything he had, they took off of him, because he was gone.
Mm-hmm.
That was my worst. That's my worst.
Okay. What was the best?
The best? Well, I didn't like Naples that much, but I liked France.
Did you go to Marseille or Toulon? Or?
No, we pulled in Villafrance,
Okay.
the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
We took a couple of side tours. We had to pay for it,
Mm-hmm.
which was very interesting. And they'd always give you they'd give you a meal too, with the bus trip, you know. And the boy, they never stopped feeding you. I mean, the French, they kept coming. I like France. Italy, I didn't care for the food in Italy, and or some of the people that much, because they were still fighting the war. And you pulled in Naples. I mean, everything was like it was during World War. I mean, the ships, the bridges are blasted, they're hanging there. The ships are sunk in the harbor. Nothing was removed. You know what I mean? It was, and they didn't like us that much.
All right.
Really.
Now this tape is about up, so I'm going to stop right here.
We saw the life of the harbor.
All right. Now, in our story, we had gotten to the point where we were talking about some of the ports that you visited, going around Mediterranean, Caribbean, and so forth.
Yeah.
Now, what kind of rules were in place when you went ashore? How long would you go, and what would you do or not do?
Well, we could primarily we could go wherever we wanted to go, but we had a curfew. We had to get back to the ship at a certain time. We couldn't stay overnight at any of these foreign ports at that time.
And what time would the curfew be normally?
I'm trying to think. Well, it could be 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock.
Okay,
No,
so
past,
relatively
not
early.
past 9.
Okay, so
No, not past 9 o'clock.
they didn't want you out too late getting in trouble.
No, well, I guess.
Okay, well, I guess if you're Coast Guard crews on these things, there wouldn't be a...
Well, this was the Navy.
Okay, you're Navy now, okay. Well, would they have shore patrols and stuff that would go out and round people up if they were...
The Coast Guard did shore patrol too.
Okay.
Oh yeah, we had curfew. And down in San Juan, we had curfews. We not so much curfews as we had areas that you were restricted from going to those areas, and you weren't allowed. And if you got caught there, shore patrol would pick you up and take you to the brig, and then you'd have a captain's mast, and you got extra duty or a lot of things. Yep. What they had. At places you're not allowed to go. Yep.
All right.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Did you stop in Spain that you can remember?
No.
Or, okay.
Not in the Navy.
All right. Or
I was in Spain, but not in the Navy.
okay.
Yeah.
And did you get over to Greece, or was that further? So just
No.
kind of France, Italy, Morocco?
Primarily around the Mediterranean.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like Morocco, yeah, we were there.
Yeah.
That's where we had all that.
Okay.
My worst experience.
Okay. And then, so how long did you stay on active duty in the Navy?
Well, my 4-year enlistment was up, and Truman extended everybody another year for all the enlistments,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to do another 2, 3, 4 months, and then I was eligible for my discharge.
Mm-hmm.
So I got released from the Navy and the active reserve, but I didn't get discharged from the reserve until the following June, until my 5th year was up.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I got discharged, in June of the following year.
Okay.
53.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And now during that time, let's see. Now, how many different ships do you think you were on?
Well, I was on quite a few. Well, when we were in Norfolk, we used to go to Little Creek, and we used to do a lot of training. I mean, on LSTs,
Mm-hmm.
landing craft ships, and we would throw the ropes over the side and crawl down the side of the ship, and then get in these LSTs and go with these coxswains. They would take us around and train. And we spent a lot of time in Little Creek. We had to learn how to run those boats, how to load them, unload everything, because in case of another war or any kind of an intervention, we had to know how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So that was over and above what we did on the base in Stevedore. You know, like I was telling you, running the winches, the forklifts, and working with the cargo and everything. This was working with Little Creek and down in the Marine bases down there. That's what we worked with.
Okay.
And we worked on the LSTs.
All right. And another thing that you mentioned to me off camera before that I want to get in the story here, you talked about some of the kinds of duties you do when you were on board ship and you were sailing. You had to move cargo and
Well,
fuel
yes,
back and forth.
we had a practice, and primarily we did that at night, and we had to we'd go side by side with another ship. It's a ship that we're giving them the supplies, and we set up our booms, set them out over the water, and then we would load up these cargo nets with supplies, and then you pick them up and you get the heck out of the way, because these things swing and they take them over and they get close as they can to the boat, and they drop the cable, so hoping it's going to hit the other ship. Most of the time it does, but and nobody better be over there when that comes down, because it'll kill you. So it hits down there, and these guys then have to real fast. They're waiting, and they take all cargo out of the cargo net, and they ship that net back. Meantime, we got these all. We prepare these all in advance, because we don't do that while we're on the way. I mean, we do it while we're on the way, but we don't do it during the exercise. We got all this stuff ready to go. So it's packed up, ready to go. When that hook comes down, we hook that cargo net, they swing it out and drop it on that ship, and boy, these guys are over there, and they take all this cargo and they get it out of there. And that's the food. Ice cream, they
Right.
want that food, you know what I mean? So that's what we used to do. But then we also practice taking fuel on. We're going side by side from the fuel ship, in times of war, and same thing. They would swing those hoses over, and we'd grab them and pull them down, and then hook them up to our tanks, and then we got to go steady. And don't forget, when we're fueling or throwing these cargo nets, these ships are going. They're going up and down. They're moving. They're rolling. So you're going with that. Okay. So then we had to do that at night too, to learn how to take all this fuel on at night in case of war. Because I don't even know if it's a case of war, because sometimes when you're out there, you can't get back or something. You need fuel. What are you going to do? Get towed in? No, you got to get fuel. So that's what we did.
Okay. Now, were there times when the seas would just be too rough to do that kind of thing?
Yeah. If it was too rough, we couldn't get that close, because we would collide. And so they got to know what they're doing. I mean, when they got these ships side by side, they got to know what they're doing, so they don't have a collision, because that's a hole in the side of the ship. Yeah, but and then again, like you said, sometimes when it's too rough, you couldn't do it. But you wait and you do it. You get the practice. You got to know what you're doing. You got to do it.
Okay.
You got to get the experience.
All right. Now, did you stay based at Norfolk, or did they move you around?
No, we went. Like I said, we went. We worked out of Norfolk, but we went on all these different ships.
Yes.
And this one time, we had to go up to New Jersey, and we went to the Marine base, and every morning we got up and got on the buses, and they drove us out to the end of this pier, which is like 10, 12 miles out. And the ammunition was out there in a place called Red Bank, New Jersey. Red Bank. And we got on these buses and we'd get out there. And what we did out there is we loaded and unloaded ammunition from ships. These were Navy ships would pull up, and if we were taking storing it or stuff, the civilian ship would come up, we had to unload it, okay? But primarily they were Navy ships. They would come in, and if they would give us ammunition, and we'd give them fresh ammunition or something, and they would go out. And we were up there for probably a couple of months. This was in January. This was in the wintertime. It's cold. But like I said, we could see Coney Island. It was closed, but you could see the Ferris wheel. And that's and Red Bank, New Jersey. Unfortunately, is where I got injured.
Okay. So what happened then?
I was I'm in a hold, and this time he says, go out on the dock and teach those kids what the hell to do, and these are young guys, maybe. So we got the railroad cars lined up, and then they're packed right behind each other, and the doors were open, and so we set up all these conveyors, and we throw the rockets on the conveyor, and we have the conveyors go all the way down, and then we stack these on a pallet, and then when we get so many on there, so much ammunition, we pick it up, and we put it aboard ship in the hold, okay, wherever they store their ammunition, because you don't throw this stuff around. You handle it with kid gloves. But I was there, and I was teaching these two kids. The kids, probably 3 years, no, that was the second time I was here. Probably 4 or 5 years. Well, yeah, 8 years out of high school before I got my degree. Yeah, because I went under both plans, World War II and Korean plan. But anyway, I'm coming down, and these things are coming down, and you're supposed to pivot at least 125 pounds. Then they're wide. They're coming down the conveyor. Pick them up, and you're supposed to pivot and lay them on a pallet. And there's another one coming. They're coming, okay? And these two guys are putting them on. I'm taking them, showing them how to work this thing. I don't know what I did. I was in a hurry, showing up. Anyway, I picked up this thing, and I turned, and I didn't pivot. And I turned my back and dropped that 125-pound rocket right on that pallet. I went down to my knees, and I couldn't move. I thought I broke my back. So they called the ambulance from where we're staying, okay? At the Marine base. And all they got is a sick bay. They don't have no hospital. So wait. What happens? Well, they had a dead battery. They had to find a charge. They had to jump the battery to get the ambulance going to come pick me up. So they finally get out there and pick me up, and now they're taking me back to the Marine base. My lucky day, we ran out of gas. I'm in pain. It's my lucky day. I ran out. They ran out of gas. So finally, somebody comes out there with gas, puts it in a doggone ambulance, and takes me to sick bay. And there isn't too much they can do with me. They wrap me up and says, well, we're shipping you back to Norfolk. Number one, you're not a stevedore anymore. As a stevedore, because you can't do any more work like this. So they sent me to Norfolk, and then I was in the hospital for a while, but nothing they did really helped my back, really. They give me a lot of aspirins. They give you 1,000 bottles of APCs, which are aspirin. They gave me all I wanted of those.
Did they ever diagnose it? I mean, what was wrong?
Oh, they took x-rays and everything. They told me if I had broke my back, they'd be able to set it, but I had sprained my back. And the way I hurt my back, there's not much they can do for it. They says you're going to get better, but as you get older, you're going to get worse. That's exactly what happened. So I was in and out of the hospital, but anyway, I got back to Norfolk, and they says, "Hey, we're moving a group cargo handling battalion up to Williamsburg, Virginia." I said, "I'm ready." They says, "Fine." So I didn't get out of Norfolk. So I went up there, and they put me in charge of the ship service section that ran the sandwiches and the beer hall. Not the clothing. The clothing was another store next to it. You walk from one to the other. So I was in charge of that. So the rest of my time there was light duty, and I had my own hours. I had to work evenings all the time, 7 days. When the ship store was open, I had to work. I didn't have to work in the morning because it wasn't open, so I could sleep in. But I had to work every night, and so I stayed there until I got discharged. And I went back to Norfolk, and then they discharged me.
Okay. And then you get to go back. You go back to Youngstown at that point, or what?
Oh,
did you
no. Unfortunately, I didn't. I went to Columbus, Ohio, because I had a little baby boy while I was in the Navy.
Okay.
Okay, and his wife was living in Columbus with her mother. And
So when did you get married?
when I was in the Navy,
Okay.
yeah, I took leave and I got married, and wife and I talked about it, and I say, "You get a check every month, you know what the heck?"
Mhm.
You know, we didn't count on any kids,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and the Navy didn't pay for it. Us poor kids had to pay for it, but we didn't count on anybody. But anyway, we got married. Just, you know, at least we loved each other. We wanted to get married. So I went to Columbus, and I got a job at Timken roller bearing for a year, and they laid me off at the end of August. I was there 1 year. Packed up, moved to Youngstown, enrolled following day or two at Youngstown State,
Mm-hmm.
and I was there for the next 4 years, four years and 3 summers to get my degree.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I did.
Okay. And what,
And I worked at the bar full time every night,
all right.
and I had a full time job, and I worked in school full for the first 2 years, and then I knew the courses were going to be harder. So I took a course or two in the summer months, because when they got junior and senior, they're pretty hard.
Okay. And what program were you in?
Business administration.
Okay. And then once you got that degree, what did you do?
Well, I went. I looked for a job. You couldn't find a job. When I got out in '57, it was pretty tough. So I got a job with the state of Ohio, working in the tax department. My oldest brother, that's hard of hearing, he worked for the IRS, and then left the IRS and went for the state. And then I got a job with the state in a different department. He was in personal property, I was in sales tax. And then my brother, when he got out of the Korean War in the Air Force for 4 years, then he joined right after I did at Youngstown State, and he got out a year or two after me. Then he went to work for the state too, but he had to go in highway use tax. Nobody could be in the same department.
Mm-hmm.
But and then we had a new governor, and they bumped the Democrats, although I was hired by a Republican.
Mm-hmm.
So, but anyway, that was fine. I got bumped, and I was off almost 3 months. You know, I never even drew unemployment compensation.
Mm-hmm.
I just, you know, I went back to school. I got a job in Cleveland, and I was making the same money I was making at the state of Ohio. I got a job in Cleveland at Cleveland Stevedore
Mm-hmm.
Company. I was in accounting. I was a finance man.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to Fenn College, then became Cleveland State.
Mm-hmm.
I took courses there, and then I had to go down to Akron State U, because I needed another accounting course that they didn't give at Cleveland State. So I worked in Cleveland, so I drove every day from Cleveland to Akron to go to class.
Mm-hmm.
And I took a tough course in the meeting, one of the toughest accounting courses there is. But I was living in Ravenna, because when I joined the state, I was transferred to Ravenna, so I had all of Portage County.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I just stayed there and worked in Cleveland. I went to college in Cleveland, and I went to college in Akron. It was closer to come home from Akron, because it was only about 45 minutes away. I lived real close to Akron State. Yeah, and Kent State was right there too. It was closer yet, but they didn't give the course. I had the course I wanted. I wanted another major in accounting, so I had to go to Akron again.
So you've got a pretty good tour of the Ohio State University system at that point, or at least the regional ones.
Ohio State?
Well. I mean,
I lived in Columbus, Ohio, too.
Yeah, but the different
I know all
states.
about Ohio State.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And then, I mean, did you wind up eventually staying in one job for a long time, or did you just keep kicking around?
Oh no! When I stayed 2 years at the stevedore company, and then I got a job with Eaton Corporation in Cleveland, and I stayed with them until I retired.
Okay.
25 years.
All right.
And my heart made me. I retired 2 years before I was supposed to, but they wouldn't let me go. Too much knowledge, so they made me work as a consultant. I got my full pay, but I didn't get any benefits, and it was full time. And I says, I can't. I didn't retire to work full time.
Mm-hmm.
But then I had a triple bypass at the Cleveland Clinic in January, and I told them, I said, I'm finished. I says, I'm done. I can't work anymore. Well, 64, 65.
Yeah. Yeah.
I says, I can't work anymore. And I couldn't, so.
All right. And how did you wind up in Michigan?
Well, Eaton sent me to Michigan.
Okay.
I worked in Cleveland, and they transferred me from Cleveland to Michigan. So I was Kalamazoo.
Right.
I was at the old plant before they tore that down. They built a new facility on 94, which was a beautiful facility. But then I had to go to Tennessee for 4 years. They transferred me down to Tennessee, and I went down there from finance as a controller for 4 plants. Then I went down as a superintendent for a year. Then I became the plant manager for the other 3, and then they transferred me back to Galesburg. It was Galesburg at the time, and they said they got a 2-year stint for you. They want you to take over this. You're the project manager of this computer system that we're going to put in on our 4 plants, and you get a crew, get anybody you want. You got 2 years to do it. And it took me 2 years to do it. And then I tried to retire, and they put me on 2 years as a consultant. But it was only, I found out later after we had that, I had to put a computer on every desk.
Mm-hmm.
But after that system was up and running a couple of years, they had to start a new one again. Third year they started another system.
Right.
I don't know, it takes like a couple of years and they start another system.
Okay.
It's terrible, but it's a lot of money, you know.
Yeah. Well,
It's
yeah.
it's a big investment.
Yep. You got
It's
to
a
keep
big
up with the
investment.
technology. Yep.
Big
Okay.
investment. So I left Kalamazoo, and I had to go to Ohio. My mother-in-law fell and broke her hip,
Mhm.
and so we had to go down there and take care of her. And then she passed away at 103, and then we still lived there for a while. My daughter lived there, Grand Rapids, and then my wife, she had bad heart. She passed away, and then I came back, and I'm back.
Okay.
I've been back now for 3 years.
All right. Now to look back at the time that you spent in the service, both Coast Guard and Navy, what do you think you took out of that, or how did that affect you?
Well, you know, I really liked it. I really did. I could have made a career out of it, but having a baby, and my wife says, she says, you're through with your 5th-year reserve. She says, no more.
Mm-hmm.
She says, if you want to stay married, she says, you got to get out and go to school.
Mm-hmm.
So I had it, but I enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. Well, I enjoyed the Coast Guard when I was in the Coast Guard, but they were limited to what you can do. And I joined the Navy. I went all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I went quite a bit.
All right. And do you think you learned anything that helped you then later on in life, or stuff you could apply elsewhere?
I'm a firm believer. I hate to say this, but every kid should go to the service for a couple of years. And ask my daughter Linda, every president should have been in the service for a couple of years. They should have had some service time.
All right.
They should. Every president should have some service time.
Okay. Well, the whole thing.
They need the discipline. They need the training. They need a different outlook, and the service gives it to you.
Very good.
No, I enjoyed my service. I enjoyed my college too. I hated to leave college too, but I did eventually.
All right. Well, thank you for taking the time to share the story today.
Thank you. You're welcome. Appreciate you coming out and taking the time.